Welcome in here to the Friday Shoot Around. I am Ryan Gilbert. He is Clint Stewart. Kansas State is off to a 2-0 start in the Big 12 thanks to a win over UCF to open things up at home, followed by a win at West Virginia on the road on Tuesday. K-State's looking to go 3-0 against Texas Tech on Saturday. We'll dive into everything that's been going on with K-State hoops. Clint, it's been a few weeks, so we've really got a lot to discuss with hoops and, K-State. You can say what you want about West Virginia and the situation going on out there, and UCF, that win didn't look so good at the time, but coming off a win over KU, that now does look like a good win over UCF. And so it doesn't matter how you get these wins in the Big 12. Wins are wins on the road, and then at home to defend that is also key. So being 2-0 is 2-0 in the Big 12. Before we dive into things, Clint, a quick message here from our sponsor. Remember to elevate your tailgate this season with our friends from Booth Creek Wagyu. Their ranch is located just north of Manhattan. Proudly raises authentic Wagyu beef from farm to table. Visit their retail locations in Manhattan and Overland Park or online at boothcreekwagyu.com. Clint, man, I don't know where we go here to start. There's been a lot. I think the Wichita State game, we haven't even had a chance to dive into that. I think it's probably too dated to dive into each of those previous games. So just overall, the last 3-4 weeks for K-State hoops, a 2-0 start in Big 12 play. How do you assess things?
Yeah, I mean, starting 2-0 in the Big 12 is obviously great, right where you want to be. It's tough in the conference, as we know, and so for us, getting the first game at home, I think was really good for us. Saw our home crowd there, and obviously we played really, really well. And then going on the road in Morgantown, a tough place to play. But for us, I think one of the things that we saw early on with this team is, going in at LSU and getting a win on the road obviously gave us confidence in playing on the road in a hostile environment. And, so it's good for us to go out there and get that win. And, say when you're 2-0, it doesn't matter how you get it. You just gotta, one day at a time, want to know each game. And it lets us, puts us in a situation now we're sitting, in a good spot in the Big 12 and another big game coming up. So hopefully we can go 3-0.
Quez Glover, expecting to get him back around New Year's, and he suffers a setback, probably out for the year. That's tough. It's a tough blow for this team, no doubt about it. But next man up, right? I mean, that's just got to be the mentality for the rest of those players, especially those guards.
Yeah, it's always next man up, and I think we're seeing Dorian Finister starting to play more minutes, and I think he's playing really well. And I like to liken it to just doing your job, and that's what we call it. It's like, he's getting out there, he's playing hard, he's defending, he's rebounding a little bit. I mentioned him early on, his ability to be able to shoot the basketball. Over the last two games, he's been more aggressive, getting dunks at the rim, which is really good. But like I said, I just liken that to, doing your job. And that's what each guy has to do is when they get out there on the floor, go do their job to help the team win. And so it is next guy up, and next guy has to be ready to do their job.
Yeah, Finister has been huge, man. I mean, what's next for him? He's kind of come in and he's had 4 games now where his minutes have increased game by game. I think he's had about 15 minutes per game over these last 4. And so he's playing well, but he's sort of just been more of a role player, right? Come in, give you some solid defense, provide that good energy. Obviously, you mentioned the dunks, right? All 6 of his points against West Virginia were from dunks. And so he's shown that, he can raise up his ceiling. But what is the next step for Finister to now get more comfortable? As he's gotten more comfortable, I should say, to now, okay, now you start hitting some of those shots. You start being more assertive on offense and being more of a difference maker. Or Clint, should I say maybe even the X factor for this team?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I've been really pleased and happy to see him get some minutes and be able to produce the way he has. I think for now, he's stepping into a role that's obviously needed. We got multiple guys that can score, but it still doesn't take away the opportunity that he might have to be able to space the floor and be able to knock down shots. If you look at the games that we have lost so far, we've shot poorly from 3, and so I think he has the ability to space the floor for us and be able to knock down shots, especially in the games that we struggle. We know there's going to be another game we're going to struggle shooting, so he has to be ready to go and do that. So a couple stats I want to throw out to you about that. So games that we've lost, you look at Nebraska, we went 4 for 30 from 3. Miami went 4 for 28 from 3. USC went 8 for 33 from 3. So you look at those games, you say, man, if we would have made some shots from the outside, those could have been a different outcome. And so he has to be ready to step up and produce when that opportunity comes, for us when we're struggling from the outside as well.
Clinton's doing his research before this episode. He's got some numbers for us. So, yeah, even if it's not Dorian Finister, I think the door isn't necessarily shut on R.J. Jones to become that sharpshooter. Day-Day Ames has maybe hit a little bit of a wall, but he's still shown his upside. And so I think Finister right now is probably the odds-on favorite to become that guy. But, I mean, there's still a handful of guys. It's very cliche to say this. I'm sure as a coach you preach this all the time. But it's true to just stay locked in. Treat every game like you're going to go in and play, even if it's been a month like it was for Finister. He didn't see the court for a whole 30 days. And I think it's pretty clear and obvious that he treated every day in practice, every pregame warm-up, shoot around, like he was going to play in these games. And that's all it takes is just be ready when your name is called.
Yeah, you got to be ready, and it's chopping wood. Each and every day in practice, you got to chop wood. You got to be ready for when that tree is going to fall, and when that tree falls, that means now it's your time to step in on the court and produce. And so for him, you can't get discouraged. In those times where you're chopping wood, you got to trust in the work that you're putting in, and you see that he's been doing that, and now it's paying off. And so he's getting more comfortable on the floor, which is really good. And you hope some of our freshmen, you talk about Day-Day Ames. I think the last 2 games he's been a combined 0 for 8 from the field. Struggled a little bit, but it's all a learning process for him. This is all new, and it's going to get as we see when you get into the Big 12, it becomes tougher. I mean, the opponents know each other, and even though UCF, we hadn't played them, it's a different feeling when you get into the Big 12 conference. And so we hope that as he becomes more comfortable playing in the conference and things, he will be start playing like he did early on in the season. And so each guy has to be ready, because when the number's called, it's your turn to step in there and produce. And you got to go out there and not only produce, but that obviously gains confidence from the coaches that you can step into that moment and help the team win. And that's ultimately what it's about.
David Gasson, he's one of those players that I think the last time we recorded an episode, honestly, we were talking about, okay, how can he kick things into that next gear? Because let's be honest, he was struggling a little bit, but his hard work has clearly paid off, and he's been a difference maker. I think the Wichita State game was sort of his breakout game, so to speak, and since then he's just been not only scoring the basketball but rebounding, doing everything for this team. How important has that surge been from Gasson?
I almost stopped you when you said David Gasson. Just that's all you need to say. He's been playing so well. It's David Gasson. But you look at, his length and activity, defensively, he can disrupt some things, but he's been scoring the ball here lately. I think the entire season he's been rebounding, which is really good. So, his rebounding wise, getting about 8.5 a game, 3.5 offensive rebounds. That's getting us extra shot opportunities. If he continues to do that, I mean, that's what we ask. I think the scoring piece of it, I won't call it bonus, but it's just an added, like cherry on the top of him getting in there and scoring for us and then giving us another option. And, with this team, there's multiple guys that can step up on any given night and obviously lead us in scoring, and the more guys that play well and the more guys that play up to their potential in their role, then the better, we're going to be. And so, he's playing well. He has to continue to be humble in it, continue to work, continue to push, get better, and obviously he's helping us win basketball games. So he's been phenomenal his last few.
Him and Will McNair have kind of been a 1-2 punch down low in the paint, huh?
They have been, and Will's been doing a good job as well, scoring a little bit and rebounding, and he's physical, which I think is what we need, and it allows us to even start a bigger lineup. When you did talk about Will and David and Arthur as your 3, 4, and 5. And then obviously Cam has some size as well for a shooting guard. And so, just it gives us more length, more physicality inside as well. And so far it's boded well.
As far as the wings go, Tyler Perry, I think we talked about this with Quez Glover's, potential return. What do you do with Perry? Do you let him play off the ball, continue what's going on? That's all out the window. So I'm sure this staff is, quickly adjusted to knowing they're not going to have Quez Glover. But for Perry, does this really change anything for him? Do you want to see him at the 1, the 2? How do you proceed now that you don't have Quez Glover and you add in the fact that, maybe Ames has taken a little bit of a step back as well? What does Ames do here?
Yeah. I think he can play a little bit of both. I mean, obviously at the 1, one thing that maybe doesn't get talked enough about with Perry is he's averaging 5 assists a game, and for a
Sure.
point guard. So he's finding his teammates. He's doing a really good job. Even the nights where he doesn't shoot it well, he's still getting 5 assists a game. And so that's really good. So he's doing some good things there. I think we do have to find opportunities to move him off the ball just to get him coming off of screens, maybe getting some easier looks rather than having to kind of create himself, and so I think there will be opportunities there, but that all depends upon, as we mentioned, Data Ames stepping up and into his role and being able to come in and control the offense, which allows Perry to move off the ball a little bit, right? And so, that puts us at more of a 3-guard lineup with obviously Ames, Perry, and Cam, and maybe you can move Arthur to the 4 in those lineups, which if we want to play maybe a little bit faster if we need to, and just bring more shooting into the game. So, he's going to have to be able to do both, but I think he's been doing well so far. Like I said, even the games he struggled, he's still distributing the basketball and making sure that other guys are getting open opportunities, which has been really good.
We're kind of just going down the line here, player by player. Jerrell Colbert, he's been another one of those guys that, really hadn't played much. And against West Virginia, it was his time. He didn't score. I don't know if he scored at all. But he had a few, blocks. He was a solid rim protector for K-State in that game. And, he passed the eye test with flying colors in that game. And so Colbert, that's another one of those guys where, are you going to play night in and night out? Probably not. That's not where things are right now with him. But when he does, check in and he provides that good performance, that's got to be encouraging for K-State staff.
Yeah, it really is. And it gives us another dimension off the bench, and you talk about if Will gets in foul trouble or David, gives you another big guy you can bring in. And it all goes back to what I mentioned earlier is just, doing your job. And so he comes in, he gets a couple block shots, he gets 4 rebounds, and those are the things we need from him. Obviously scoring opportunities are probably going to come off of ball screen rolling or offensive rebound putbacks, rather than just, straight posting up and throwing it inside. So he just has to be ready to produce when that time comes. And obviously he got that opportunity against West Virginia, played about 6-7 minutes, and played well, and so those things, he gains confidence in himself. Coaches gain confidence in him that they can then put him back out there in situations that we need him. And he's got to continue to do those things that he does well.
Do Cam Carter, Arthur Kaluma, and Tyler Perry need some help as the 3 sort of stars on this team? Or do you think that those guys can just all get it done? I talked about this in an article earlier in the week about Dorian Finister maybe being that guy. Does K-State need a guy or Finister to be that guy, to be sort of the X factor, or can those 3, get it done in the Big 12?
Well, I love having someone come off the bench, and when you bring someone off the bench, you don't lose the intensity, you don't lose the production coming off the bench, and so I think we're still looking for that guy, and then obviously Dorian has kind of stepped into that role the last 2 games. I think that's going to be important for us to obviously have some good success here in the Big 12 season. So hopefully that can happen. Now, we talk about our top 3 guys with Cam and Tyler and Arthur. They're averaging about 45, 46 points, collectively together. And so that's really good. David's obviously stepping up and playing really well. We talked about Will's playing well. But, when you get in the Big 12, any given night, guys are going to have off nights. There's going to be foul trouble. It's going to get tougher to score. And so you really need a punch off the bench that can come in and that can produce. And so hopefully Dorian can be that guy, and if it's not one of the, maybe Day can fall back into a role that can really help us, off the bench. But we're definitely going to need some production there as well.
How much does Dorian remind you of Desi Sills from last year coming off of the bench? I know he became more of a starter as the year progressed, but early on he was that energy guy to come in off the bench and give you a boost.
Yeah, and Dorian can do those things. He's athletic. I think he uses that really well. He can defend. And obviously Desi could defend. And he can get to the rim, and I think he can shoot the ball as well. And he hadn't had as much opportunity shooting from the outside, but he has to stay ready for those opportunities. And it's going to be big. Anytime you can, like I said, bring someone off the bench, and we saw it last year with Desi, just the energy he brought. You can just feel it just uplifted the team. And Dorian, can fall into that role for us if he continues to do those things.
I don't want to say we're beating a dead horse here, but Dorian Finister, just his recent surge. Like, we shouldn't be surprised by it, right? Because all these RJ Jones, Day Ames, Colbert, Manning had a solid game. These guys that maybe aren't playing much, Everybody's shown their flashes, and I think Jerome Tang has kind of sort of downplayed what Finister has done, not because he's not pleased with his performance, but just because that's what's expected. You are a college athlete here on this Big 12 program. It's kind of, expected, required that you just step in, like we talked about earlier when your number is called. And so I don't know if I have a question for you or just if you have any thoughts on this, but it just seems like, Tang has sort of downplayed things a little bit with not only Finister, but anybody coming off the bench. It's just like, yeah, when it's this guy's turn, he's going to step in and play well. When it's that guy's turn, he's going to step in and play well.
Yeah, well, I think it all goes back to the high expectation,
Mm-hmm.
As a coaching staff and Tang and his staff, they recruit guys that they know can play and can play well, and that fit into the system and the scheme, and that are coachable, and that want to get better each and every day and want to bring everything that they have. And so, they have the utmost confidence in all the guys, and no matter who they put out there, they have confidence in them. But it's still, as a player, it's still your responsibility to go in there and do everything you can do to play well, to continue to keep that confidence that the coaches have in you high, and so for Dorian, he has to continue to play well. One of the things you think about, he's a redshirt freshman, so he's been in it for a year, right? I mean, even though he didn't play last year, he's been in the system for a year, right? I mean, it's a long season, for a true freshman, in high school, it's not as grueling, and you don't play the same type of competition, and even practice wise, it's not as hard as it is every single day. And so naturally, what you see with true freshmen is there's some ups and downs, there's ebbs and flows within the season. There's times, they might start off really well, and then as they get into the grind of the season, they have a dip, and then they got to kind of find their way a little bit, and then they start playing well again, And so for Dorian, he's been through it, and so you kind of expect him to step out there and have a little bit more confidence, a little bit more feel to what's going on, and obviously his body is probably a little bit stronger and ready for the physicality and night in, night out, just because he's been in it for a year. So I think that's what we're seeing right now.
Before we take a break, Clint, how would you grade the first two games in conference play? You're 2-0, so it should just be an A+, right? But obviously, turnovers, I'm sure there's some foul, all this stuff here and there that you want to get better at if you're Jerome Tang. So how would you grade the first two games?
The biggest thing is defensively has been good. And I think as we've seen, offensively in the few games we've lost throughout the season, we haven't shot the ball well. And so we have to just remember that defensively we have to be great. And so far in these first two games, I think we've done that. You think about West Virginia, they shot the ball pretty well against us in the first half. And second half, we came out and put the clamps on them, which is really good, and held them to about 30% shooting in the second half. And so I think from a defensive standpoint, that's been good. Offensively, we're making some shots and doing some good things. I've always mentioned, turnovers are really important for us. We have to limit turnovers, especially limit transition opportunities for the other team. So live ball turnovers. And then against West Virginia, we had 17 points off turnovers. They had 5. So even though we had 13, it didn't turn into offensive opportunity for the other team, and so that's really important for us. So I think so far from, probably a B+ in that area. We can always get better. And then we got to continue to rebound. And, we've been out rebounding our opponents. That's been great, and so, in the Big 12, usually the team that can get more rebounds, and the team that can get to the free throw line, the team that can defend ends up winning, and so those are the things we got to continue to focus on and hopefully do, obviously, in our next game against Tech.
We'll talk about that game here in just a moment on the Friday Shoot Around. He is Clint Stewart. I am Ryan Gilbert. Welcome back in here to the Friday Shoot Around. I am Ryan Gilbert. He is former Wildcat, and he is also the former coach of K-State signee David Castillo, who was recently, Clint, named to Team USA for Nike Hoop Summit. And Jerome Tang, I asked him about this yesterday, just the impact that he has, right? You look at what that team did with the Team USA did with Castillo, right? They're winning like every game, and then they don't have him because of his injury, and they don't win, right? So before we talk about K-State hoops, I mean, how happy are you for your former player?
Yeah, very happy. It was awesome to see, and obviously nominated for McDonald's All-American as well. And I'm hoping that he gets that opportunity. I had a chance to speak with him over the break. He was able to come home and obviously get some time here in Bartlesville, and he's having a great time. He's doing really well. The opportunity of playing against high level athletes night in, night out has been really good for him. I think it's going to set him up to hopefully step into K-State and be ready for the speed of the game, the transition of, all right, there's 6'7" that I got to try to get around or shoot it over. So hopefully it's all good for him. And like I said, he's doing well. I'm just thrilled. Each time I see him, he's gotten bigger, which is good. And stronger. I think he could probably finally beat me in one-on-one now. So that's obviously a plus. And so no, but he's great, and it's good to see him continue to succeed.
Future of K-State basketball is very bright with him coming in next season. But looking at Texas Tech coming up on Saturday, I think the leading storyline heading into this game is Grant McCasland, right? And the connections with Tang and, him being the former coach at Tyler Perry. Does that give K-State an advantage to know what he's going to do as a coach? Or does that give Texas Tech an advantage to kind of know the tendencies of Tyler Perry and stuff like that?
Yeah, I think it obviously gives Texas Tech coaches a little bit of advantage. I mean, they know what Tyler's capabilities are, but at the same time, I think Tyler's a little bit different player than what he was at North Texas, and so they have to adjust to how he's playing and how Coach Tang is using him within his system. But it should be a good one. I know it's fun for Tang to have the opportunity to obviously. Go to Tech, play against Tech and Coach McCasland, and it's fun for Perry to have the opportunity to play against his former coach. I'm sure he's looking forward to it, and even though they might not talk a lot about it, there's always for Perry, there's a man, we got to win this game, we got to win this game, and because it's obviously playing against his former coach, and so it should be fun. I know Perry's going to be excited to play well. I hope he comes out with great energy, and I hope his shots fall, and obviously continue doing the things he's doing to get other people open as well, and has a good game against Tech.
We've talked about the slower pace that Perry was playing in last season, and so that's not been the case for Texas Tech at all with Grant McCasland, right? I know it's a different team, different program, but it's still the same head coach. They're averaging almost 80 points a game this season. So does that change surprise you that Texas Tech is now, I guess McCasland has changed from being more of a slower paced coach to now kicking things up a notch? Is that just what it takes to win in the Big 12, being able to adjust?
Yeah, I think, as a coach, going to each season, you kind of adjust to the players that you have, and kind of what's best for the team that you have.
Yeah.
And so, looking at, Tech's capabilities of being able to get out and push the basketball and score in transition. I'm sure he kind of reassessed, maybe what he even maybe was comfortable with from an offensive standpoint and said, hey, what makes sense for our team and our players? And so, it's playing a little bit faster now. Normally what you see happen is, you can play quite a bit faster during non-conference play, and then you get into Big 12 play and things slow down a little bit just because it becomes more physical. Teams have all the scouting and then play calls that you run, and so typically teams that are scoring 80 early on, they get a Big 12 and they're more in the 60s. So I kind of expect that. We'll see how the game goes, but I think our defense will do a good job against them and then kind of keep them hopefully in the 60s or 70s, and then obviously have the opportunity to go win.
How important are the coaches in the Big 12? I was having a conversation with somebody about this recently. Like, you look at West Virginia, and with all due respect to Josh Eilert, he's awesome. He's former K-Stater. Can't say enough good things about him. But let's be real, he's not a Power 5 coach, right? And the staff that he's put together was kind of a makeshift group, and that's not necessarily a Power 5 coaching staff. And so they've got talent on their team. I think Raekwon Battle, we saw him last year against Montana State in the NCAA tournament. That guy can hoop, right? They've got some pieces from the portal. So it's not that they don't have enough talent. So this kind of leads me into my, question about, like Jerome Tang, Scott Drew, and Grant McCasland. Those guys are all 2-0 in the Big 12 to start, come from the same coaching tree. That's good coaching. And so how important is the X's and O's in the Big 12, getting your guys prepared and ready to play regardless of who's on your team, right? So if Clint Stewart was given the most talented roster, no offense to you, Clint, you're an awesome coach, but you're not a Big 12 coach, right? If a high school coach was given the most talented group in the country and they went up against, Bill Self, Jerome Tang, whoever that best coach in the Big 12 is, with the least talented group in the league. Who wins that game? How important is the coaching in this league, and how much of a difference does it make?
Well, it definitely makes a difference from a preparedness standpoint. You have to get your guys prepared and ready to play, not only mentally and not only physically, but also mentally. To be locked into game plans. And so and everyone has a game plan, but not everyone's game plan is the same. And so from a coaching perspective, the guys have to buy into what your system is. They have to buy into what your game planning is. And you have to get them to lock in and really play together. I think what you see now is, even if you have, a really talented team and you bring them in from maybe you get a bunch of transfers that come in, it's how do you get them to fall into roles to play together, and so I think that's a challenge. And not only just, for maybe for West Virginia and Coach Eilert, but just in general from a college perspective, especially with the transfer portal the way it is now. So coaching can definitely make a difference. It still falls back, though. I mean, you got to get the right guys that buy into the system and the right guys that understand that winning is the utmost important. And then as they fall into roles, they can kind of see where they can or what they can do to impact the game to play well. So now you have guys that are, all right, you're our main scorer, and this is how we need you to score the basketball. Okay, your job is to rebound, and if you score, that's great. Like we need you to look for those opportunities, but we don't need you going and trying to get the ball and scoring it every single time because that's not your role. And sometimes that can be hard to have those conversations with players and for players to accept that. And so I think that's probably the challenge, and that's what the coach's job. And the coaching staff, that's what their job is, and then that's how you get the teams to play really well. And so I think Tang's obviously done a tremendous job of that. We saw that last year. You're bringing in, a team. People might say a team of misfits, and kind of coming in and bringing them all together and figuring out, okay, how can we play our best? And you said even this year with the multiple transfers that we have coming in, obviously freshmen coming in and getting those guys to gel and the culture that's there. So they all realize that it's not about me, it's about we, and I think that's the challenge that coaches have today.
I mean, this happened against West Virginia. It seems like every game coming out of a timeout, K-State is able to get a free 2 points, and that's all coaching, whether that's something they drew up a minute ago in the timeout or if that's something they saw in the film room. Okay, hey, let's go to this now. That's coaching, right? And that does make a difference. Those 2 points here and there, I mean, those can be the difference makers in games.
Yeah, definitely. And I'm sure from a film perspective, those coaches saw certain things in film that they thought they could exploit. But then it's on the players, and in that trust that the players have in the coaches that what they're telling them is, okay, let's go execute this. And then they got to go out and execute, and so that goes into the buy-in of, we believe what the coaches are telling us, and it's not about myself. It's about what's best for the team. And, as a coach, you can draw up the best play call. I tell my guys this all the time. I can call timeout and draw up the best play call to get a wide open layup. But if we can't make the pass to get the layup, or we can't make the layup, then it doesn't mean anything, And so the players still have to go out there and execute it. And they got to buy into what the coaches are saying. And obviously CK State is doing that. So it's been good.
I know your play calls are always great. If it doesn't work out, it's on the players. It's not the coach's fault, ever.
Right.
How important is this game for Kansas State against Texas Tech? You win this, you're 3-0. And, we talked about West Virginia and UCF. Those are great wins, but let's be real. Neither one of those two teams is as hot as Texas Tech is right now. They're sort of finding their groove entering Big 12 play. Winner of this game's 3-0. And, the rear view mirror, like you look back, okay, whatever happened in the non-conference, it is what it is. K-State has lost 3 games, right? But to go 3-0 to start off Big 12 play, I mean, that's just so much momentum that you have heading into the thick of Big 12 play.
Yeah, and it is important, and not to diminish any team in the Big 12, but we know that we look at UCF, look at West Virginia. I mean, those are good wins for us, but they're not KU, right? They're not OU, who's playing really well. They're not Baylor, right? And so we have all these teams, coming down the stretch that are obviously better basketball teams that we're going to have to face. And so Texas Tech is another one where, we need to go in with confidence and we really need to get the win because it's not going to get definitely not going to get any easier, as you keep moving on in the Big 12. And so for us, we've got to come in with the right mindset. If you can start 3-0, that just puts you, at the forefront of the Big 12. And gives you the opportunity that, as when you go on the road and you go, like going to Lawrence, right? It's a hard place to win. And so you go in the right mindset for that game and go in to win. But if you don't, you got to set yourself up early like we are now, so if you do drop one late, that it doesn't hurt you as much, when it comes to the standings in the Big 12. So it's a big game for us. And then, like I said, hopefully we can pull out the win.
K-State has 3 back-to-back road games in Big 12 play. The next one will happen later in January, and the last one will be in March. And so, I mean, this is tough. You go out to Morgantown, you got to fly in to one of the smaller airports, and then you got to drive an hour to Morgantown. It was snowing. K-State got there on Sunday, and that game was on Tuesday. So they were on the road for a while. And then you go down to Lubbock. I mean, that's a complete opposite, part of the country. I mean, this is going to take a toll on this team. But again, that backs up the point of, going through that, getting past that obstacle, going 2-0 in that road trip, right? I know they treat every game like it's its own season, which kind of backs up the point earlier of, guys stepping up on given nights, right? Like every game is its own season. But back to the point here, back-to-back road games, that's not easy. And so if K-State, that just further backs up this point that if they can steal one in Lubbock, I mean, not only are you 2-0 in the Big 12 on the road, but you went 2-0 in this tough road stretch.
Yeah. And that's important. And winning on the road is hard, and so, just because of the travel that's obviously there that you have to do. And then going into another arena and the crowds and the fans, and just a place you might not be used to playing at. And especially when you talk about, bringing in, transfers, right? So we have multiple guys that haven't played in the Big 12, and so they're not even familiar with, Texas Tech's floor. We've never played here before, right? So kind of overcoming that and understanding the surroundings and just getting comfortable in that can be tough. And so it'll be big for us. If we can get this win on the road, at Tech, a hard place to play, a hard place to go win, that can obviously boost us down the road. One of the things I kind of just mentioned is, not being familiar with playing at certain places. When you think about KU going to UCF and then obviously losing at UCF. I was talking to one of my buddies about this. I said, he's a big KU fan, by the way. And I said, we were joking.
He can't
about
be your
it.
buddy.
Yeah, I know.
Can't be your buddy.
I know. We were joking about it. And, because I was letting them know, well, K-State beat UCF by 25. And then obviously KU loses on the road at UCF. But one of the differences there is UCF comes to Manhattan. They've never played, those kids on that team have never played in Manhattan, Kansas, right? So they get in that atmosphere, and it's just different. It's everything's kind of new and uncertain, right? And so we have the advantage in that situation. KU goes to UCF, right? They've never played. Those players have never played at UCF and on that floor, and so they're kind of looking around and just trying to get comfortable with the situation, the floor, and so it gives UCF the advantage. And so I think we're going to see a lot of that, especially now in the Big 12 when talk about we added UCF, added Houston, added BYU, so a lot of teams that these guys they've never played in these different places versus, the normal Big 12 teams where it's like, all right, if you have a junior, sophomore, junior, okay, I've already played here. I've played here at Texas. I played here at Texas Tech. I played here at Manhattan. So you're already familiar with the surroundings. And so, I think that can definitely be a difference maker, this season in certain games that happened in the Big 12. But we're going to have to go down and like I said, our guys are going to have to get comfortable quick and go out and play well and beat Tech on the road.
Baylor comes to Manhattan on Tuesday. Again, K-State, Jerome Tang going up against Scott Drew. Another storyline there, but I guess I know all the focus right now is on Texas Tech, but the next time we speak, this Baylor game will have already been played. So just your thoughts on this matchup against the Bears before we wrap up.
Yeah, it's going to be a tough one. I'm glad it's at home for our first one. Obviously, I know Coach Tang mentioned last year, it's always tough playing Coach Drew, and then just the respect that he has for him and in both ways. And, it's almost a you want to win, but I'm sure, there's also the friendship there between the two. And it's going to be tough, and like I said, this is the stretch, you're in the Big 12 now, so every game is tough. Baylor's always a team that's playing, they're always playing well, and Scott Drew always has his guys humming and doing the things that they need to do to go win. But for us, we're sitting at 11-3. If we can get to 12-3, get to 13-3, after this next game against Tech, and then obviously we get to 14-3, I'm sure we'll be ranked by then. So, and so hopefully, we can get these next two wins and then keep moving.
I know this isn't the standard that you want to set for your program, but if you go 1-1 over these next two, you're probably okay with that, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's a tough stretch, and like I said, anytime you're on the road, it's definitely hard to win. So we got to go to Tech with that right mindset, and then Baylor is obviously a great team, and but at the same time, in the Big 12, one of the biggest things you have to do is protect your home court, and so we do, at the very least, we want to go 1-1. Obviously, we're shooting to go 2-0, and that means going 1-0 on Saturday, 1-0 on Tuesday, and that's what we're shooting for.
All right, Clint, we'll be back here next week. Hopefully, we're breaking down 2 wins for Kansas State. If not, we'll talk about what went wrong in those games. But, Clint, I appreciate your time as always, man. These are always so much fun. And we went a few weeks without it, but I think from now until the end of the season, this will be a weekly show.
All right, sounds good. Appreciate you having me.